Welcome back to Inclusive Design 2020, Inclusive Design 24, 2023, brought to you in partnership with our Platinum supporters, Google and Intopia, and our Gold supporters, Barrier Break and Tetralogical. You can follow us on Mastodon, and if you have questions for the presenters, post them on using the ID24 hashtag and post them in the YouTube chat for our Q&A at the end of the session. A reminder that ID24 is a respectful community, and you can find our code of conduct on the Inclusive Design 24 website. I am honored to be joined by my guest host, Johan, I'm gonna do this right, Johan Halkman.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Thank you very much. Next up is Lee Dale. And Lee has a track record in helping organizations with market-leading products and services that win diverse markets. Today, he's going to share a big part of his knowledge, of his immense knowledge, I must say, and experience with us in a practical guide to inclusive design. Over to you, Lee.
Thanks so much, Johan, Kathleen. Thanks for having me. I'm grateful to be here and amongst all the other top speakers for another wonderful 24-hour sprint of amazing inclusive design content. I'd actually like to start out by noting some amazing, inspiring, and possibly familiar inclusive design books and resources that are available. Those include Building for Everyone by Annie Jean-Baptiste, Mismatch by Kat Holmes, and the Fluid Wiki from the Inclusive Design Research Center, which if people aren't as familiar with that, potentially I have this centricity that I'm in Toronto, they're in Toronto, so I don't know in Canada. So thinking about the global reach of this conference, they're doing really great work out of OCADU and Inclusive Design Center and sharing a wiki where people can participate and contribute resources. So I wanted to call those out and celebrate them. But I also wanted to acknowledge that as much as those are essential works, and there are many other resources out there, what I've found is that they don't necessarily include a comprehensive and business-centric set of tools, templates, and processes to bring inclusive design practices to my or your day-to-day work. And when you're in a role where you have a need or a responsibility to sell inclusive design to others and to do the hard work to show its impact, you need more than stories and ideals and case studies. You need a practical guide to inclusive design that helps to align teams while being tactical across a series of common product, service, and training roles. So I'm Lee Dale, CEO at Say Yeah. Thanks for the quick intro there, Johan. And I've been working through my advisory, my community work, and with my team at Say Yeah to evolve an inclusive design practice really over the last 10 years. And so today I'm going to walk you through two foundational aspects of an inclusive design practice and share more detail about evolving how we can work across research, writing, design, and other key roles that impact products, services, and learning programs. So we're going to spend the bulk of our time today, or my time on the talk, walking through two foundational aspects of inclusive design. And the first is the benefits of inclusive design, and in particular, the business benefits of inclusive design and how to articulate them. The second is the intersectional data model. This highlights a series of factors for better understanding the people we provide our products and services to. And I'm also going to touch on a few other topics, including market and research, user research roles and practices, writing practices, digital accessibility, e-learning, and marketing and client communications. So what makes me the right person to walk through this? In addition to my advocacy and advisory work, and actually the last 20 years of practice that I've had before starting Say Yeah, I've actually worked with global impact organizations such as the World Wide Web Foundation, government organizations, educational institutions, trade and training organizations, and corporations as well that serve tens of thousands of employees. So I actually even spoke on some of these topics 2 years ago at Inclusive Design 24's 2021 edition in a talk titled, "There is no average person designing with intersectionality in mind." And since then, we've continued to hone our practice at Say Yeah through research and service design work, while designing and shipping digital products and delivering effective learning programs for everyone. So today's talk expands on the topics of my 2021 talk to present refined foundational aspects of inclusive design while touching on deeper tactical considerations that can help all of our work, all of our communication, and our collaboration with others. And this isn't just based on theory, but it's derived from ongoing practice, from delivering solutions, from shipping. So from my perspective, really importantly, inclusive design is about making change. And at Say Yeah, we've been cultivating a way of working that helps us shift from concepts of ideology to impact. We have a few kind of values or approaches or considerations that we have when we're doing important work like our inclusive design work. And some of those include focusing on advocacy, not activism, and taking action over expressing beliefs or just expressing beliefs. Understanding that behavior is more important than intent. And above all, providing support and guidance, never judgment, as we work with organizations, teams, and colleagues who are all at different stages of their knowledge, work, and understanding. Our way of working is driven by a desire to make an impact in ecosystems that really by design aren't altruistic. We believe the benefits of inclusive design are persuasive to leaders and people interested in doing important, effective work and can persuade businesses to make change within their organizations. And when we look generally, we see that alignment across organizations and across teams within organizations is difficult. So bringing new practices to a workplace requires leadership support. It requires buy-in, often both literally and figuratively. It involves teamwork and it involves ongoing effort. And typically not everyone is at the same level of understanding, of interest, or priority. And this is no different with inclusive design. And that's why it's so critical to be able to communicate the benefits of inclusive design to leadership, managers, and team members. So let's begin by exploring the benefits of inclusive design. Understanding how inclusive design can impact an organization is particularly helpful if you need to communicate internally or across an organization and with other team members in order to effectively practice inclusive design. We really don't want to be working in silos. We don't want to be, solo advocates with an organization, and there are real business reasons to take these steps. So that's what this is all about here is bringing other people along. So before we get to the benefits, let's talk about the need. There's this commonly held tenet that in product and service design, that designing for the average person actually serves 80% or so of a market or a segment of people. And really this myth stems from 150-year-old junk science that is really wildly out of touch with a series of trends that have been leading us towards increased global diversity and individuality. So there's no question that markets are diverse. Therefore, to be successful, it's our job to learn how to meet the needs of the diverse markets that we serve. And to do so, we need to move on from this kind of wishful thinking of having a primary archetype to design for that helps us serve an average majority group that really doesn't exist. So what steps do we take when there is no average? There's no archetype or kind of similar shortcut to say, okay, if we do it this way, we'll at least cover most. Well, the good news is designing for market diversity can help your bottom line and enable you to operate at a level that has a profound impact on both operations and customer experience. Traditionally simplistic ways of designing products and services for an average customer when markets are inherently complex have actually limited product and service effectiveness. So when we design considerate of the broad spectrum of people who make up a market, we can deliver operational and customer experience benefits. Let's explore those benefits and the bottom line impact of inclusive design. The high-level benefits of inclusive design include growing market access, engagement, and revenue, reducing exposure and risk, and decreasing team effort, timelines, and cost of operations. Let's review these in more detail. Enabling people of all backgrounds and abilities to engage with our products, services, and learning programs helps us reach a broader user base and unleash revenue potential. Growing means we can expect to discover new market opportunities by connecting with and providing service to previously untapped areas of our market. We can improve customer access by removing barriers that actually limit access to our products, services, and content. And we can grow engagement and conversions by providing more relevant, usable, and accessible products, services, and content. By proactively understanding accessibility standards, language considerations, and access rights, we lower the risk of legal action against our organizations. With digital platforms becoming integral to modern society, global governments have authorized policies to enforce accessibility and inclusion of diverse audiences. In the US and parts of Canada, for example, companies that fail to make their platforms accessible to diverse audiences, especially those with disabilities, risk legal action under the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, and the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, AODA. And there's further legislation being developed across Canada and the globe. So establishing practices for better serving all customers helps us meet and exceed the standards of current and forthcoming legislation. Thereby, we reduce legal risk by being proactive about understanding accessibility standards, language considerations, access rights. And we reduce the risk of unintentionally alienating parts of our market or kind of setting off a public relations challenge by being more aware of market expectations and more intentional about serving the full spectrum of our market. Now, time is an expensive commodity, and many organizations lose hours of labor on attempts to retrofit or react to the fallout of existing services not being set up to serve everyone. Restructuring a non-inclusive system involves restarting various organizational processes from service design to product, content to support and training, while dealing with marketing and PR challenges. And you can save time and money and deliver exceptional customer experiences by embedding inclusive practices into your day-to-day work from the start. You can work with your team to decrease ongoing effort by starting on a path that makes it easier for everyone to engage with your products, services, and content. And you can decrease ongoing costs by more efficiently planning and delivering products and services that serve your whole market without rework and retrofitting. So it's worth repeating these benefits, as they can be really impactful talking points for you. Inclusive design helps with growing market access, engagement, and revenue. And it reduces exposure and risk for an organization. It also works to decrease team effort, timelines, and cost of operations over time. So by avoiding kind of boxing people in by demographics and assumptions through more intentional practices and customer modeling that's considered of the full diversity of our market, we can more deeply understand customer intent, customer journeys, and behavioral patterns that influence when and how people use our products and services. Well, this approach will shift our product and service teams away from perhaps familiar design and marketing processes. By involving how we engage with archetypes and personas, this shift offers a significant opportunity to reshape our organizations as operational and customer experience leaders. So let's unpack an evolved model for archetypes and personas that helps us set a roadmap for organizational transformation. The intersectional data model is a framework for better understanding the people who use the products and services we put out into the world. It's a tool for cross-organizational alignment by being able to share customer and prospective customer knowledge in ways that can profoundly impact business planning and strategy, customer research and product effectiveness, service delivery, product, marketing, and sales. This is about moving beyond interesting customer insights to enable each organizational unit to inform their work with actionable customer insights. The purpose of the intersectional data model is to establish a framework for considering users and their requirements as a shared initiative across the organization, and to facilitate cross-organization activities that improve collaboration and shared customer insights that lead to collectively optimizing the products and services towards improved client outcomes. Research ethics, inclusive design, and accessibility standards help product teams resolve many universal considerations affecting the customer experience. But these are usually very specific roles and often bound to siloed organizational units. And this idea of the intersectional data model is to provide the foundation for a holistic understanding of users across the organization. And with an understanding of the customer at the center of internal communications, supplemented by customer outcome-driven objectives and key results, or OKRs, and key performance indicators, or KPIs, Typically, siloed areas of an organization can begin to build mutually beneficial strengths in delivering exceptional customer experiences. A shared customer data model helps OKRs and KPIs align across the organization to improve product and service delivery and client outcomes. Leadership, sales and marketing, user research designers, writers, and developers may have an independent understanding of who an organization serves and how to best engage with this audience. And each team may independently develop objectives based on their unique goals, inputs, and perspectives. Goal development within siloed organizational units, though, it can lead to distractions, misalignment, redundancy, and conflict because there's not a shared understanding of the customer, of the purpose of all the work. Various organizational functions do have unique user perspectives that contribute to fulfilling business objectives. Sometimes these are in conflict, and this can be addressed with a shared data model. By collaborating on and contributing to a shared understanding of users, each organizational unit can apply its unique lenses while maintaining a more robust shared knowledge about the actual beneficiaries of an organization's product or service, rather than hypothetical and disconnected models. So, for example, sales and marketing can benefit from knowing about beneficial users and key targets within a product. UX and product can benefit from knowing who purchases a product or service and from added insights across the organization's various touch points that are outside of product or the service area. And a service delivery team can work with the research team to anonymize data and develop improved customer feedback loops. And here, best practices aren't enough. We must engage with people, understand their lived experiences, and be adaptive to them. Each area of an organization must be considerate and adaptive to people's needs across a spectrum of diversity. Without organizational alignment on this objective, any particular gap in communicating or delivering products or services, and across all the organizational departments responsible for accomplishing this, can increase the risk of underserving, alienating, or offending someone or a group of people. And by rallying around product and service users and going beyond the standard persona, which is generally focused on demographics, an organization benefits from a more holistic view of customer nuance, impact, client value, and opportunities for improvement and growth that fuel creative solutions and innovation. Each organizational unit benefits, along with improved cross-organization outcomes, in the following ways. There becomes a shared language, shared knowledge, a shared understanding of the customer. And gap analysis can be based on the total addressable market rather than maybe this average that people have been seeking to capture. You can validate activities across the organization based on a customer-centric lens. You can reduce duplicate effort, and you can inform next step product and service decisions because you have a clear picture of who those products and services are for. And then you close it out with informed internal and external communication. So the intersectional data model is product and service oriented. Its intention is to deliver the best possible outcome to the most extensive audience. And edge cases are fundamental. However, they likely require unique ethnographic considerations and processes. So the intersectional data model expands on how foundational alignment can generally serve diverse markets over explicitly narrow accommodations. And then those can be layered in as a supplement. Fundamentally, this intersectional data model is intended to establish collaboration and evolve customer understanding across an organization. Now let's get into it. The intersectional data model consists of three primary categories of factors that can help you see and engage with the people who make up your market. They're human factors, technological factors, and sociological factors. And these three primary categories and related factors come together to inform someone's behaviors and experiences in the world and shape how they will engage with a product or service. This means we can best understand someone by understanding these factors about them. So human factors are anything related to the five senses that may facilitate or limit access to a product or service, as well as cognitive considerations. Human factors are grouped as visual, audible, physical, and neurological. Technological factors include any technology or understanding of technology that may facilitate or limit access to a product or service. So those technological factors include digital maturity, internet access, the device people use, operating system, the browser, assistive technologies, and the environment that those things are being used in. And sociological factors relate to personal variables, backgrounds, and lived experience that primarily impacts how we would communicate or support people. Sociological factors include economic, education, age, identity, cultural, household, and work. Diving deep into human, technological, and sociological factors across a customer base provides a foundation for establishing the following: an organizational-wide understanding of the nuanced set of consumers who make up the addressable market and active customer base, a shared reference for understanding where to prioritize adapting product, services, and communications to most effectively and efficiently serve customers, a model for focusing research and information gathering toward providing the most effective product, service, and communications insights beyond what is covered by best practices. And ultimately, the foundation for developing a centralized avatar model where each organizational unit can contribute customer data that will impact customer understanding, and variable facets across human, technological, and sociological factors may be quickly and subtly related, compared, and shifted to bring nuance and dimension to our understanding of the customer. So we can move beyond the persona and towards a nuanced living avatar that is regularly updated with the latest customer insights. So let's look at the detailed facets of human factors, technological factors, and sociological factors. Human factors focus on access, understanding, and engagement. Again, they include visual, audible, physical, and neurological considerations. So let's look at each of those. For visual considerations, we want to ask ourselves, how might someone who has limited or no vision experience video content, or experience a picture or infographic in a how-to blog post, or experience product onboarding or a sales presentation? So some standard ways of supporting people with visual differences include accommodating color contrast, including descriptions for images, and supporting zooming and screen readers. If we look at audible considerations, we might ask, how might someone experience videos without subtitles, or experience a podcast, or experience sounds as notifications if there are also no visual cues that go along with those? An example of how to serve people with auditory differences or situational needs is by providing closed captioning and transcripts with each of our videos. Here's an interesting pro tip. Sign language is not the same as reading written words. Those are different languages. So if you are looking to serve and provide service to people who are deaf, then you might want to consider sign language alternatives over only providing captioning and transcripts. So for physical considerations, we might ask, how might someone experience content that promotes physical activity they can't participate in? If you make a suggestion to go for a run, but that person can't run, what else can you offer them? And how might someone navigate your website if they can't use a mouse or touchpad? So there are accommodations for those kinds of things, but sometimes those are afterthoughts, or sometimes they're not tested and understood to be working. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And then how might someone experience ableist language, images, or illustrations that don't reflect them? If all they see are the same people who aren't them, how do they feel connected to your organization, to your content, to your service? Neurological considerations, there are a couple of factors here. With a neurodiverse audience, we might need to consider accommodations for people who are trying to focus on long format text articles, where the effort of that or the language might be more difficult to understand or to absorb. And maybe it's something where people want to save content to review or reread later, or have access to it in a different way. And part of that is understanding as well, what's the language standard that you've set? What's the reading level of your content? And how does that fit with the diversity and nuance of your audience? When we're talking about neurological considerations, we can also consider someone's mental state. And in our product and service planning, we can think about different ways that people will bring themselves to the product or the service, and how that will impact their experience. So from an engaged person to even an agitated person and everything in between Consider how product and service experience, language, and objectives may be received across different states of mind. Shifting to technological factors, these predominantly impact product platforms and channels and performance optimization, as well as audience comfort and the likelihood of engagement. They include, again, digital maturity, internet access, the device people use, the operating system on that device, the browser they might use, assistive technologies, and environment of use. So let's look at how these come into play. Digital maturity focuses on someone's comfort level with technology, including the available product and service platforms that are offered to them to engage with the product or service, the product interfaces they have to navigate, privacy and security considerations and comfort level, and then channel comfort. Are they okay with online versus a preference for in-person or phone or other channel usage? And we need to consider the device or system that's used to access these services. Considerations there include screen size, performance, interaction models, the operating system and web browser or application versions people are on. Those versions can have the product work in a different way. Of legacy versions have to have accommodations technically. And so if you know that your audience is on an older version of an operating system or web browser, then there are accommodations that you need to provide them. So here we want to ask, what assistive technologies do customers use? Is the product or service accessible? Great question. But is it usable and enjoyable when using those assistive technologies? And if you haven't provided access to those assistive technologies, or they don't work with the product or service, are there alternative modes of engagement or other accommodations for those people? With internet connectivity, we should ask, is someone's internet available? Is it fast? Is it reliable? And those things can shift over time, day to day, and in different situations or different environments. So there are impacts of access and performance across various internet speeds that can be considered. And there are considerations around reliability. So people may experience performance issues or dropouts. There may be latency issues depending on where they are, what kind of environment they're in, what kind of service they have access to. So how will all of those impact their experience? And what can you do to accommodate or mitigate that through design decisions and technical considerations? With environment of use, we can ask, for example, how does an experience differ in the office, at home, on the road? What other environmental factors may impact someone? Are they regularly in a place with loud noise or an inability to hear audio? What does that mean to the experience if audio is prominent? Are they in a space where they're preoccupied or distracted by different things occurring around them or different things they have to achieve? Are they in a situation where they may only have one hand at a time? Lots of other environmental and situational considerations, and they can all impact design decisions we make and how we make accommodations within our technical toolkit. So now looking at sociological factors, these predominantly impact writing and communication. They include economic considerations, education, age, identity, cultural, household, and work. So cultural considerations can include language spoken or languages spoken. And in this case, you can consider how much does translation need to be a priority. It can include idioms or vernacular common phrases that are really highly potentially localized or niche. So there can be localization considerations there. Do we use the same common phrases in North America as we would use in North Africa? And it can include affiliations, political, religious, or even food choices. With identity, we're considering race, gender, sexuality, and any factors there that might impact the content that we're developing or how people will engage with a community or product or service. With home and work, we can consider the household environment. Is there a partner? Are there kids? We can consider the work environment. Are they in an office? Are they remote? Do they work from home? Are they hybrid? And how do these factors potentially change someone's perspective and shape their experience? Age, education, economics are other factors that can impact. So it's important to consider that as new and more personal data around lived experience and other factors are gathered, data privacy and security are critical to ensuring the safety of a customer. The concept of the inclusive data model is to build anonymized, aggregate, cross-referenceable data points, not to track individual users and their detailed personal history. Steps should be taken to hold a high standard of regard for individual privacy. And Kobun Zweifel-Keegan shares more on this topic, highlighting 3 kinds of threat models that we should be aware of when we're gathering data and holding data about people. Those can be insider attacks and harms that can be perpetrated on users via design choices. That can be users hurting each other or misusing features. And it can be governments leveraging, misusing, or weaponizing data. So here are a handful of questions that are helpful to ask to begin to build a shared data model across your organization and put the intersectional data model to work. What data is each organizational unit currently collecting? And how might it align with the human, technological, and sociological factors? How can this data be centralized for access across the organization so we can break down those silos and have a shared understanding of the customer and a shared purpose? How might each area of the organization prioritize sharing new customer insights to inform customer avatars on an ongoing basis to keep that living avatar alive? And given our understanding of our diverse customer base, when you're within an organization and acknowledge market diversity, what are the objectives and key results and the key performance indicators, both at the organization-wide level and at the department level, that are in place to validate that we are succeeding in engaging and serving people across this diverse audience? It's often that each individual organizational unit has their own KPIs, metrics that they're following that could be in conflict. And so this shared data model is about bringing all of that together and finding a shared language and shared understanding. Now that we've reviewed in some detail the 2 foundational aspects of inclusive design, the benefits of inclusive design and the intersectional data model, I'd like to continue to some more tactical role-based considerations that further put the intersectional data model to work. So let's take a look at these roles: market and user research, writing, digital accessibility, e-learning, marketing, client communications. And taking a look at some market and user research considerations, we want to ask the question, how do we validate our products and services are delivering value to diverse user groups? From an inclusive research perspective, the primary considerations that will inform this include representation, considerate of the diversity of employee groups or customers or people that you're charged to serve through your work. How do we ensure representation of that diversity across research activities? And then how do we get a deep understanding of the participant's relationship to a product or service based on the specific differentiating human and sociological factors we discussed? So knowing that we have these factors that we can track, we can start to bring and be intentional about bringing those into our research work. And we need to acknowledge the following. We talked about representation, but each research exercise or individual project we conduct will not represent the full diversity of the audience we serve. There's no way to make that happen due to the scale of intersectional considerations, all those factors we discussed, and the nuance of individuals. And recruiting practices don't always allow us to be intentional about diverse representation through an upfront screening exercise. So there are a few tactics that we can play with considerate of this. When we understand the intersectional data model that helps us understand more of a person's lived experience, background, and relationship to our product or service, we can be intentional about gathering those details over time to build a more fulsome picture of our nuanced customer base. We can collect this information during recruiting, or if that's not possible, as a questionnaire during research, for example. And we can intentionally connect with audiences that have not been represented during prior research. So we start to build that diversity over time. Now, there are many ways to be more inclusive in writing. Some of these are standard across the board of any project or service or company. They can relate to general factors such as reading level, an understanding of situational engagement with a product or service, tone, the support that's used. And other writing factors can be very focused on how and who a product or service impacts. They can impact mental state, We can use language and idioms that are appropriate and welcoming to the audience, and so on. So here's some high-level content and writing considerations that can be universally helpful. One thing that we often, and there's always exceptions to rules, but often find as a challenge is the idea of being hopeful in our writing. It's typical when we're positioning topics and examples to use negative language. Don't do this, as opposed to exploring positive reframing. Here's how this can be better. So being hopeful in our writing is a really excellent consideration, depending on who your audience is and what you're trying to impart to them through your content. One of the other things that we want to be careful of is double checking that the vernacular that we use is not outdated. Slang and other vernacular can be more relatable and approachable, but over time, cultures and based on geography, things can change, and it can come across in unexpected or unintended ways. So when we use familiar terms for us, we want to ask about how they will be perceived and understood by our audience. We also want to try to use universally inclusive language. For example, avoiding language that focuses on gender or focus on specific culture, or doesn't take gender and culture into consideration when we're connecting with and engaging with a diverse audience. We also want to show examples of techniques to increase understanding. We don't just want to write about something, we want to show or demonstrate it using more than words. This is really helpful for people who think and learn and engage and understand content in different ways. We want to embrace secular and cultural backgrounds. People are different. There's a spectrum of diversity. It should be celebrated. We want to avoid recommendations in our writing that contradict cultural intersectional identities across our audience. We want to provide additional resources and also give credit so people can learn more independently. I started the talk today talking about some of those amazing foundational resources like Mismatch and Building for Everyone. And no individual, no company has all the answers. It's a community of practice that we need to develop in the work that we do. And for people who are learning or starting down a new content path, if you're providing them with resources, expand that beyond your walls and share the people who came before you and the history of that. We want to be careful of localized or culturally specific idioms or expressions if we're trying to reach a broad audience. Those expressions simply may not be understood by much of the audience as you shift between cultures and regions. And finally, we want to test our writing and language with real and diverse people. No one has all the answers, and seemingly similar people, from our perspective, will have often different opinions about what language works for them, what doesn't for their community, and so on. And so we learn best by connecting with people, not working in isolation. Now, following digital accessibility practices allows us to deliver exceptional product experiences more efficiently. Following these practices has many benefits, including opening up access to market by reducing barriers to access, improving content engagement by providing multiple means of engagement, providing the content in different ways for different people who engage in with different needs and perspectives, and reducing overall effort by following a shared and documented set of web standards that avoid costly and time-consuming auditing and retrofitting. Finally, growing market share by setting ourselves apart from the competition and leading in access and engagement for all. Digital accessibility objectives can only be reached through a series of shared responsibilities. Specifically, digital accessibility is achieved across a mix of content, design, and code. Best practices across each of those areas is essential to establishing and maintaining accessibility. Accessibility is not accomplished through auditing and retrofitting. It's about everyday practice. We need to start in the right place, especially with code, or we'll constantly play catch up with audits and retrofitting instead of efficiently delivering accessible product experiences. And the other factor, if you think about the content side, is you can provide the facility through a content management system through code to have content accommodations like subtitles, transcripts, alt tags. But if content developers are not making that content and putting it and ensuring it's available in the system, then all of this breaks. So it really is a combination of those three factors of content, design, code, and a shared practice. Two other considerations that support accessibility efforts include effective documentation of accessibility-related implementation requirements, so following through things through from content design to code and ongoing changes. And then, most importantly, testing across the content design code phases with real people. Now let's look back at the intersectional data model. There's something amazing here with web standards. When you consider the intersectional factors of users, we can leverage web standards to address most of both the human and technological factors that we talked about. And that's because web standards are designed to make digital products adaptive to different accommodations, technologies, and user needs. The human factors are almost addressed for free by following web standards for accessibility. And by understanding the nuance of the technological factors of your audience, you can leverage web standards to tune your digital products to best meet the requirements of those factors. For example, ensuring your website loads on a slow internet connection if necessary, or making sure an app loads on some older devices that are commonly in use by your audience. Now, if we shift a little bit to e-learning, which we believe is a super important practice for all organizations, and it's where we've been focusing our time over the last couple of years, it's particularly important to go beyond web standards, as we just described. They're great with most of the human factors and technology factors, but there's one key human factor that isn't covered by the standards, possibly yet, but certainly now, and that's neurodiversity. The bottom line is people learn in different ways. Depending on a person's intersectional factors, including access and neurological considerations, they may have a preference for engaging with content in one or more of these three ways: by reading, by listening, by watching. So not just for e-learning, these are different ways of engaging with information that impact marketing websites, blogs, and more. So things to consider when developing an online course are to let learners engage at their own pace and over time. This is one of the primary benefits of online courses over classroom or time-boxed courses. Providing and forcing everyone to engage at the same time, pace, can impact learning in a negative way. When use the tool that anyone can access at any time to allow them to be free to experience that information and absorb that information in their own way at their own pace. Providing course content in multiple formats is also critical, especially making an effort not to bury content inside of videos. Videos have timelines that people have to scrub. They're not easily searchable. They don't necessarily come with subtitles and transcripts that people who prefer to read might be able to engage with better. So videos alone are not enough. But if that is the course model you prefer, you've got to be sure to include subtitles and transcripts at a minimum. And consider the intersectional needs of diverse learners, those human, technological, and sociological factors that will change how participants engage with course content. The writing guidelines we described work for course content too. That's how we can start to adapt our content to our audience and improve engagement. And lastly, there's a technology component to this, which is that most courses are delivered on learning management systems. You want to make sure that you use a learning management system that supports all the online interaction models, including mouse and touch, keyboard, screen readers, Zoom, and voice. Don't prevent people from accessing your course because the LMS is a barrier. Now, for marketing and sales teams, there is tremendous value in understanding how product and service teams apply inclusive design practices across their work. This gives a frame of reference as to what is being accomplished with service delivery and customer engagement, and what steps still need to be taken to better serve diverse markets. And this informs all marketing and sales communication. Additionally, sales, marketing, and client communication roles also have direct engagements with customers and potential clients, and they produce media that connects with those customers. So this makes most of the topics we've covered today relevant to sales, marketing, and comms. They have to write, they have to ship something, they have to update a website, and so on. So the intersectional data model provides a series of lenses to consider marketing and sales audiences and to shape the content and conversations that happen with them. The writing guidelines provide a framework for improving communications. Digital accessibility considerations play into marketing and sales media. And understanding how the product and service teams working to better serve diverse markets can help frame products and services through an inclusive lens through marketing and sales conversations. This can also help with competitive intelligence. Is anyone else in your space at the forefront of inclusive design and better serving diverse markets. That's really important intelligence to know. So we touched on a lot today: the benefits of inclusive design, the intersectional data model, market and user research, writing, digital accessibility, e-learning, marketing communications, all of these roles. And I'm really excited to share that we're making the practical guide to inclusive design available as a course and series of resources you can bring to your day-to-day work. So you can visit sei.com/inclusive guide to get started for free and sign up for more detail on the full suite of modules, where we expand on everything we've covered today with a growing library of examples, tools, and resources. And got a little bit of time remaining. I'd like to open up to any questions. And I can share some questions of my own to get the conversation started, if depending on where we are. Kathleen, go ahead.
Okay. Wow. Well. Wow. Thank you very much, Lee. That was really great. And I want to thank you very much for that presentation. And I want to ask Johan, did you see any questions in the, thanks, Otis. There's Otis's tail again. I want to ask Johan, do you see any questions in the channel?
No, it looks like you covered a lot of ground. You've been very complete. And thank you very much for that. It was a great comprehensive story. But it also means that there are no questions in the chat. So,
well, let me ask a couple things and see if anybody has any ideas. I'm curious if anyone, if there's anything I didn't touch upon that people would have expected to have seen in some of the topics we covered. And I would also be interested to know if anyone has any other people or resources they'd recommend that could inform the work that we're doing and the knowledge that I have, because this is, for me and for all of us, a learning process, an ongoing learning process. And I'd be happy to hear from other people if there's anything like that. But I really do appreciate everyone's time, and also encourage people to reach out to me. I'm available to discuss this. This is a passion of mine for the last 10 years, and really happy to engage with people and have conversation with them through any of the lenses that we discussed today.
Yeah. I'm afraid we won't have many time left. I see that people thank you for your for your great presentation. I'm afraid we have to move to the other speaker. You were very thorough, and thank you very much. I guess over to you, Kathleen.
Yes. Yes, looks like we have run out of time, so we do have to wrap up. So thank you very much, Lee. That was very insightful. I have learned a lot. I have a lot of takeaways to reflect on going forward. So thank you again for everything that you have taught us today. And so if you all have liked this session, please hit that YouTube like button, and don't forget that you can subscribe to youtube.com/inclusivedesign24 to be kept in the loop on our future events. Inclusive Design 24 is brought to you with thanks to our supporters: Google, Intopia, Barrier Break, Tetralogical, Intuit, InfoAxia, and the Law Office of Laney Feingold. Inclusive Design 24 will be back on the hour with our next session. See you then.